that probably frustrates me most about this process that I'm going through of trying to think more objectively, more logically, is when I talk to other people that perhaps don't appear to be thinking that logically or that objectively, they don't seem to see the benefit of it, right? So I've talked to a few people recently who have been very certain about certain political views, whether it's that Donald Trump needs to be the next president or he shouldn't be the next president, and there's seemingly absolute certainty on those views. And conceptually, I can explain to them, and I think they understand it, that it is net negative to be that certain, right? You don't have to change your view. You don't have to put anything at risk. But if you're looking for the truth, right, the idea of staying objective, having some doubt, questioning, only helps in that, right? And if what you believe ends up being true, or at least true for you, going through that extra work, all it does is help validate and ensure that if some new information comes in or you should change your view in some way, you're capable of it. There's really no positive to being as certain as they are. So that always frustrates me a lot, because they will understand that concept, but then they will, in the next breath, say, yeah, I get it, but I'm still certain, this or that. And that doesn't compute for me. I can't understand that. I've talked to it before about, to me, that's 2 + 2 = 4. And they're telling me like, yeah, I see your math. I see 2, but no, it's 5. And I don't know what to do with that. So in the spirit of what I talk about, and sadly, it probably took me longer to get here than it should have, I entertain the possibility of there's not a benefit to them of not being certain, or I guess said in the non-inverse way, it's beneficial to them to be certain in some way. They're not seeing any cost associated with it. That logically, if what I believe as logic as a principle, and then everybody's running some sort of calculation, if they heard that information and that information changed their assessment and said, oh, okay, yeah, no, I definitely see the value of not being certain, in theory, they should start acting that way, but oftentimes they do not. So there must be something else in that equation that, even though they now understand that it's possibly better to have doubt, it's not better enough. It's not better enough to cover their decision to be certain. And when I first think about that and try and process it and put it into perspective, it makes me think of, people who smoke cigarettes despite the warning, people who don't exercise despite knowing they should, or don't eat healthy despite knowing they should, or whatever it is, right? That's not uncommon. That's not uncommon for people to be told something that's better for them and still do the opposite. So perhaps seeking doubt, not being certain, falls in that vein. It's just something that, much like exercising, is too hard to do, and forcing yourself to try and do it, or even striving to try and do it, doesn't seem like it's worth it. Sure, it would be nice maybe to think like that, just it would be nice to lose 50 pounds, but realistically, it's not going to happen. That's going to take way too much work, and I have all these reasons why it doesn't make sense for me to do it, and it won't happen. And particularly when it comes to the way in which we think, and that certainty versus uncertainty, one of the big concerns is, if you lose 50 pounds, let's assume you could do it, you become healthier, you feel better about yourself, perhaps you look better. There's obvious benefits to it. And even then, people, will dismiss and not do it because it's too hard. In terms of thinking better, I don't know that there's a clear, tangible benefit that people like that could point to. What I often hear from people is, well, what does it matter what I think? Like, I'm not the one making the decision. So if I want to be certain about it, there's no risk to it. And I think that's true to an extent. And you run into this issue where it's really just at the collective level. It's at the aggregate level where it matters, where there's the benefit to it. As an individual person who, has a vote, obviously, but beyond that doesn't have too much impact, right? Maybe they talk to other people. Maybe they, spread that message a little bit and spread those views. Maybe they teach their children, whatever it might be. There's some impact, but there's not the impact of as if a politician or the president is acting that way, right? That's a much greater impact on them. So when they look at the benefit of what's it matter if I think better, what's it matter if I'm less certain, They think it doesn't really, there's no real benefit to anybody. Like, yeah, I get it. Maybe perhaps it'll be somewhat better for me. I'll be somewhat more objective, but to what end? Okay. Like, if I get this wrong, it doesn't really matter. Whereas, again, in the losing weight case, if you get it wrong, potentially you get sick, you die. So that becomes a problem. That becomes a problem of that collective benefit that has to happen, because how do you convince people individually to do this? Is it that it's better for everybody? So, you know, you need to, I often say you need to be the change you want to see in the world. So is it that more idealistic view of we're going to convince people that as each individual does it, you know, it'll all play it forward and it'll carry out? I mean, sure, I buy that, I believe that, but that's a tough sell. That's a tough sell for individuals when it's that much work, when it's that unnatural for them to think that way. So I think I need to spend a little bit more time thinking through that. You know, what is actually the benefit for each individual person? And my short answer, right, that comes to mind in the bit of time left here is that it doesn't just have an impact on that thing, right? If I am super certain about who should be the next president, and I'm able to get myself to a place of questioning and doubting and trying to think more objectively and trying to search for the truth more, typically that bleeds over. And the way in which you develop that skill takes work in other areas of your life. You have to build the mental toughness we talk about. You start questioning lots of things and thinking differently, and that will trickle over. So perhaps the individual benefit isn't just to that topic. In that topic, it's the collective. That's where you need everybody for it to really matter. But individually, it's less about that topic. It's more about what it takes to think better, and how when you apply that to everything, well, now your life becomes better. Now you're able to make better decisions in general. You're happier, you're more fulfilled, you're more aware of your blind spots and your biases and these identity issues you might have. All these things start to improve upon, and maybe that's the selling point more than to the specific topic itself. Something to consider.